It's just started recording, so go for it.
Fantastic. Good day, colleagues, and welcome to the online module, the personal branding module, brought to you by Sasol and LinkedIn. My name is MJ Khan, and I'm in Group Communication and Brand Management, and it gives me great pleasure today to welcome a great friend of Sasol and a very strong personality when it comes to the personal branding space. From our LinkedIn team, he is our Enterprise Relationship Manager. I'd like to introduce Mr. Ray McDonnell. Ray, thanks so much
Wow,
for joining us today.
my absolute pleasure, MJ. My absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for the kind words. And as you mentioned, I am a friend of Sasol, and I've known many of your colleagues. So just to introduce myself quickly. So my name is Ray. I manage the relationship between Sasol and LinkedIn. I look after our large enterprise clients here in South Africa. So today, as it might suggest, we're talking about personal branding and specifically rocking your profile. So what you can do today to make improvements and network through LinkedIn.
Rock your profile, very exciting. And I think, Ray, what's very important for those who are listening to this recorded session is whatever you listen to today, whatever you reflect on, think about how it affects your personal brand and the way you want to profile yourself on the different platforms. We completely understand that each person's journey and each person's comfort level regarding what they share is going to be different. So what we'd like you to do is, as we present the framework today, is personalize it for yourself. Look at those opportunities where you can grow, where you can push yourself, and we can really make your profile stand out. And with that, I think let's jump over to the slides and let us begin with the LinkedIn Rock Your Profile webinar. So I think, Ray, over to you for the first slide.
Yeah, I want to start by sharing a secret or a personal story. So on the left-hand side is a personal friend of mine, Stephen Kennedy. So about 12 years ago, I got a connection request, a LinkedIn connection request from Stephen. As you might see from our similar connections, we both studied in the same similar universities, but we fell out of touch as people do. So that connection request turned into a conversation. That conversation led to several interviews that led me to recruitment. I spent four and a half really happy years in recruitment. And me and Stephen became even better friends. During the course of that time, he joined a company called LinkedIn. We obviously stayed in touch. And he then started speaking to me about the virtues of LinkedIn, the great brand, etc. So lo and behold, he got me into an interview process in LinkedIn where I joined him. So it led from me being a hotel manager to recruitment to LinkedIn. During the course of that time, he subsequently joined Team Africa. So he then started speaking to me about the great clients like Sasol that we get to work with in Team Africa. So shortly thereafter, I joined Team Africa. So what I'm saying is that his next move, I really hope, is like a sailboat captain in the Mediterranean or something like that. So I can just follow him there. But what I'm emphasizing here is the power of the network and the power of that one connection request that we all have at our fingertips. So if you can go to the next slide, please, MJ. So it basically took my life and completely changed it. So here I am on the left-hand side with the Irish national soccer team manager, Giovanni Trapattoni, in my hotel management days. And then on the right-hand side, I made the ill-advised decision to get in a cage with a cheetah, where I led the East African business for LinkedIn. And even from a personal perspective, during the course of that time, I got married, I had 3 children, and I upgraded or downgraded to a rough collie rather than a cheetah, so a safer option. So it changed my whole life, professionally, personally, economically. So I just want to emphasize like the power of the network and what we all have at our fingertips. And MJ, if you want to go to the next slide or you have anything to add, please go ahead.
Definitely. I think the power of connection is really quite powerful. And I also reflect on my own journeys in terms of how I met my spouse, and that's through digital itself. I used to blog a lot back in the day, and I used to write a lot of articles, and that's how I connected with her. And I'm also lucky, I also have very similar LinkedIn stories where a lot of my academic career when I was a lecturer, I used to find opportunities through LinkedIn, through those networks, and it's really been such a powerful force in terms of my own career growth. Definitely. So, Ray, over
Perfect.
to our agenda for today. And I think what we've done is we've chopped it up into 3 very distinct areas. Number one is really around getting to know LinkedIn, and this is the space, Ray, where I want you to actually articulate that, like, why LinkedIn? What makes LinkedIn special? When we think about a personal brand, there's so many options available to us, but what really makes LinkedIn that much more special, that much more remarkable? And then from there, we're going to zoom in to what we like to call your profile, your story. And here's where we want the pen and paper. We want you to reflect on how it is you want to position your personal brand on the platform. And with a wrap up at the end. Sounds good, Ray?
Awesome, MJ. Thank you very much for that agenda. So really, really happy with that.
Let's
So
jump into it.
yeah, so why LinkedIn? And I guess like one of the main fundamental reasons around why LinkedIn, it's the largest group of professionals ever assembled online. So the membership base still sits at 706 million, so 706 million globally. It's still growing by 2 new members every second. So let's just even reflect on that in the last 60 seconds, 2 minutes, how much the member base has actually grown. And then also in the face of the pandemic, like our online persona is much, much more important. So what we speak a lot about online, and MJ, you'll certainly know a lot about this, is engagement. So our engagement levels on the platform in terms of the members digesting content, connecting with people, messaging with people has actually really accelerated over the course of the last 3 or 4 months. And then even just to look at South Africa specifically, our member base is about 7.8 million in South Africa alone. So the number one reason someone would actually join LinkedIn is to look for a job, to look for an opportunity. But why they would actually stay is very different. So it's to stay connected. So as a networking tool, it's to stay informed. We're one of the biggest publishing platforms in the world today. So it's a really diverse array of value propositions that we offer, like individual members like me and you and everybody else on this call. So that's the bit about why LinkedIn. If you want to go to the next slide.
Definitely. And I think before we go to the next slide, that distinction that you spoke about is quite important, the way we view LinkedIn. And I think a lot of people have a certain amount of skepticism with regards to certain platforms where it's just boxed in with one primary objective. So perhaps people have the perception or misperception rather, or misconception that LinkedIn is purely just for job seekers. And what we're really saying is no, there's definitely it excels at that department, but LinkedIn really is about your personal brand, your career brand, your professional brand, and how all of those lines blur together and how you can definitely learn and grow just by accessing that platform. I know, just as a sidebar, Ray, as well, if we look at LinkedIn's acquisitions and LinkedIn's sort of inroads with regards to education, we can
Mm-hmm.
definitely see the shift in the way the platform positions itself and in also the way people consume the platform. So definitely something much more than just a place to keep a CV on. Do you agree?
100%. Our mission is to connect the world's professionals and make them more successful and productive. Like we operationalize that mission and that vision through what we call the economic graph. And the economic graph is where we match all of our members with companies, with the jobs that are available within those companies, and then try to give them access to the skills they need in order to actually gain those jobs. So, I mean, you've really hit the nail on the head in the sense that it's way more than just find me a job. It might start off like that, but it certainly transitions into other areas.
That's wonderful. So let's bring it home with what I like to call your profile, your story. And I think, well, let's just jump into perhaps the next slide, because that for me is really telling from a real estate perspective. So, Ray, I'm going to actually ask you, who would you engage with? We've got Saad Naseem, right, in two glorious profiles. Maybe one profile slightly less glorious than the other. And I'm talking about the profile to the left. Tell me a bit about the profile you think you'd engage with or you'd actually want to connect with.
It's pretty easy, right? It's going to be the one on my right hand side. If you think about it, it just makes sense. The one on the left is anonymous. There's no picture. We're not really too sure. The one on the right really shows me like what Saeed is like as a professional, as a person, what he's done. So it's clearly going to be the person on the right, and I think everybody should really, reflect on the aesthetics of these two profiles, because this is what we're shooting for, really, right, MJ?
Definitely. And I'd like to position someone, your own personal LinkedIn profile as your own real estate. And that's your real estate that's really selling you in your absence. And this is the opportunity where we say, is your profile currently doing a good job selling you out there? And again, it's not necessarily just selling you to recruiters or whatever it is. It's selling your professional brand. It's selling you as a thought leader. It's selling you as an influential connector that can then change the world. So something definitely to reflect on. And I love this comparison. It's quite a stark comparison between what is primarily an anonymous profile versus something that's fleshed out. And I think this is perhaps the goal for today is let's reflect on our profiles and what are those little things we can do to optimize just to make sure that our LinkedIn profiles are really batting for us in our absence.
Yeah, very, 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 very much so. So we're going to go into the mechanics of what makes a really good profile. But like you've mentioned one word there, and that's a little adjustments. So sometimes like going in and changing your profile might seem a little daunting, like writing a CV. But like the beauty of it is you can make small changes or small steps, and it makes such a massive difference. So this is a step-by-step guide in terms of what you can do and all our Sasol colleagues can do today to improve their personal brand, their LinkedIn profile, and get noticed. And turn yourself to the side on the right. Number one is a photo. So a photo or a professional headshot is an absolute requisite. It doesn't have to be something that you go to a photographer for. We all have access to smartphones, so it's something that you might use a smartphone for. So LinkedIn isn't the platform for the photo with your wife or your husband or your children or your dog. We can save that for Facebook, for Instagram, for all those other platforms. It's a good quality professional headshot, and the engagement levels by just having a photo alone is really, really significant. Um, Number two, and this is really important, it's adding location. So if we reverse engineer this process, you have recruiters that are enabled with recruitment licenses. You have our job technology that targets people based on specific locations. We have media or ads that target people on specific locations. So the more precise you are with your location, the easier it is for recruiters and the technology behind all that to actually find you. So really, really important on the whole location piece. And MJ, obviously feel free to jump in here at any point. So the summary piece. So the summary piece is not what you do. The summary piece is your elevator pitch. So it's what differentiates you from the next person. So if you had 2 minutes with a decision maker or somebody who was going to make a hire, why should they speak with you? So think elevator pitch, think short, think concise, think achievements. Um, Experience. So your experience is the main body of your profile and almost like the CV element to it. And for me, like your experience needs to be achievement based experience. So it's going to be inferred that if you have a certain job title, you've been on a certain trajectory, like throughout your career, that you're going to have the basic skills in order for you to do that job. But what makes you stand out from the next person? What are your achievements? What are you really proud of? That's what should be here. The fifth piece is pictures and videos. So again, what separates, I mean, a lot of things separate LinkedIn from a CV, but what really separates it is like that opportunity to add like pictures and videos and multimedia. So that doesn't exist on an online CV format. That could be an event that you spoke with. It could be a presentation slide deck. If you're on the marketing side of things, that might vary as well. So a real opportunity to actually show your work. So that's that piece. And if you have anything to add there, MJ, please jump in, or I'm happy to transition to the next piece.
Yeah, I think I'd like to weigh in on a few of these. So for me, what you said now that was really insightful is adding location. I mean, if I just look at the stats here, right, it'll boost your visibility in searches by up to 23 times. And what's important as well, colleagues, is that these aren't just South African stats. These are the global LinkedIn stats because we know that we've got colleagues that are going to listen to this from all the different countries that we're in. So it's really important that you consider location because at the end of the day, your social media profile really speaks to relevance when it comes to people searching you and that's important. Just think about that. How relevant are you? And proximity does play a role in that. So again, something very easy that you can do. It'll take you a few seconds, and that really works. I find as well, Ray, that a lot of people sometimes neglect the experience side of it, where it's simply just a title or their job title at the time and their tenure, and that's it. And they don't actually go into details in terms of the key positions, the work history, the experience, and the milestones. And I think for me as well, that's also important to consider when you're actually creating a holistic or rather a comprehensive LinkedIn profile, is to flesh out that experience. When it comes to pictures and videos, colleagues, we've got over 500 videos on our YouTube channel with just under 10 million views. So if there's a project, a successful project, where we've captured some video footage on that, by all means, that's a good starting point for you to consider repurposing that sort of content. We've got the largest LinkedIn page in South Africa with well over 500,000 followers. And my team and I update content there regularly. In fact, we do on average two content pieces a day. So again, have a look at what Sassel is putting out if you're looking for inspiration around pictures and videos, and surely you will find something that your hands have also touched that gets packaged for the different platforms that you can then use to just make your profile a little richer. And with that, let's go on to a few more points. So
Yeah.
education, tell me a bit about that.
Great points. Yeah, on the education piece. So I've spoken at a number of events, and an interesting question came up around education. So some people are transitioning, right? They're transitioning from one role to another, and their education might be incomplete, let's say. So one of the questions I fielded recently was that if my education is incomplete, or I'm in the middle of studying an MBA, like can or should I include that? Like I would just 100% include that, and I would just put like in progress beside it. So like think about everything that you've done on the education side of things. Your masters, your bachelors, your MBA, your certificates, etc. And then also like LinkedIn Learning itself offers a lot of free resources and courses that you can really build out your profile with as well. So think about like the certificates you can actually get online quite quickly that can really build out that profile. Endorsements. So number 7, endorsements. So when you click into somebody else's profile, you're going to have the opportunity to endorse people. So if I click on MJ's profile right now, I'm sure 100% I will see social media. So I'll just click absolutely. I'm going to endorse MJ for social media, and he might look at my profile and he might see like account management or sales or relationship management, and I hope he might click I'm going to endorse Ray for one of those skills. So it can be reciprocated. So start endorsing people and then get endorsed today. Recommendations. So I'll share my profile, but I would like wholeheartedly recommending people. So if you've worked with somebody in the past, recommend the work that they've done with you, whether it's on the client side and whether it's somebody that you went to university with, etc. And then ask people for recommendations. So think about all of the managers that you've had previously, and think of how rich that would make your profile. So if you look at my profile right now, you'll see previous managers, you'll see clients, you'll see candidates that I used to work with in recruitment. So if you look through my profile, you'll see more or less everything about my my entire background and like that third-party objectivity. Interests. So we're going to go into a little bit around interests later as well, but like follow companies that you're potentially interested in working for, follow thought leaders that you're interested in, and this, we'll talk about this later again, feeds into the quality of your newsfeed. So think about you're going for an interview and you're following 10 companies in oil and energy, and all through your newsfeed is oil and energy. So you're going to have that much richer detail. So yeah, that's it on that piece. And MJ, if you'd like to add anything there.
Definitely. And I think what we've done with these 9 points is essentially build up credibility. So if you look at all of these 9 areas, it does speak to building up credibility, which is why all of them work so well together. And again, these are all little things that someone can do very incrementally to then definitely make their profile stand out and make them stand out amongst the crowd.
100%, 100%.
So, Ray, you spoke about tailoring your settings, and I think this is something very valuable because it does speak to the nature of social media, which is really about curating and self-selecting what you want to view. And it's really important that people know that you do have the option to tailor your settings. You can take control over who you connect with, how you connect with them, and it's important that you must not feel that this is an all-out thing where your privacy is going to be exposed or anything like that there, and you have complete control of this. And I want to make sure that colleagues understand that it's not necessarily about being completely public about everything. Each person has a different natural tendency towards social media and towards sharing, and it really is about how much do you want to put out there to definitely assist your brand. So yeah, Ray, a little bit about tailoring your settings, please.
Yeah, so like one word I'd pick up on there is control.
Mm.
So like you have 100% control in terms of what you share. So you can make it as public or as private as you wish, or just somewhere in between. Um, what I've seen is if some people are really job seeking and looking for next opportunities, they may choose to make their profile as public as possible. What I think is useful to note as well is our number one cultural tenet is members first. So we're a members first organization. So everything that we do is within like the best interest of our members, which is me and you, MJ, and all of the 706 million people globally. And I guess like what I'm happy to say is that we've always been pretty focused on that member piece. There's always been a massive amount of trust on the platform. Like for the past 3 years, I think we're number one in social media across that trust barometer, and like trust is consistency over time. In my opinion, so that's what I would say around the whole privacy piece.
That's great. So let's get into the actual meat. So if you've been with us on this journey so far in terms of this webinar, you've got really good pointers in terms of how to optimize your profile. So you've got great performance factors. Now let's go into the content aspect of it. And I think perhaps what we'd like to say up front is when we think about content, sometimes it becomes very daunting when you think about, publishing a piece of content because you might think, okay, I'm going to write something, it's going to be quite wordy, I'm going to put it out there, publish it, and I'm going to put myself up for scrutiny. And that sometimes, that reticence and that form of self-censorship really often holds us back. And what I find often is it's really about, sharing, reflecting on what you do, because we all have a great story to tell. We all have such great expertise to share and putting it out there. But if you're not ready to start publishing or creating content, then the other option and perhaps the easy option in terms of just, wading in is the curation part, and that is sharing updates. So Ray, I see we've got some notes here around sharing links, articles, images, quotes, or anything else your followers might be interested in. Can we unpack that over the next few slides? What does it mean to
Sure.
share an update?
Sure, absolutely. I think we go into a bit more detail, but like updates are generally shorter. And like as you said, MJ, you're an absolute expert in this. You don't have to go and publish your own article and like polish it for 2 or 3 weeks. It can be just sharing a link to an article, an image, or a quote, or an inspirational quote. And like what we're going to talk about a lot, like especially over updates and publishing, is just being authentic, being your true self. So if we
That's
can
perfect.
move to the next slide. Yeah, so sharing status updates basically starts on your homepage. So these are short updates. And I think if we roll on another bit, we're going to talk about do's and don'ts, or certainly do's around updates. So if you can move to the next slide. Just in terms of best practice, that whole piece about being authentic, that will be number one. If we could just keep going there, MJ, please. So just to be 100% upfront, I'm not of a generation where I'm 100% familiar with hashtags, or certainly not just hitting the hashtag button automatically, but hashtags and tagging people in your photos and in your posts increase engagements. So think about, you're at a conference, you're at an hour-long conference, you meet 6 people at that conference, you all stand around, you take a picture underneath the banner of the company, you tag all the people in that picture, and you say, great to spend time with such and such colleagues at the conference, some excellent points on A, B, C, D. That's a post. So that is absolutely perfect. It's people related, you're tagging people, you could hashtag, etc. You're making it conversational. You're asking them to say, well, it was great to see you too. It includes that piece around rich media, and it increases engagement. So that one simple photo at that one conference and tagging those people and adding a couple of hashtags, and you're done, and you've created like a massive amount of engagement, and you've used that rich media. And we've been in those photos together, MJ, right?
Oh yeah, quite a few of them over the years.
Yeah.
And just a few more things from a Sasol perspective I'd like to share around hashtags. So we are quite I don't necessarily want to use the word proficient, but we're definitely quite considered with the use of hashtags, especially the hashtags that relate to brand. And we've seen such great value of it over the last few years, or at least over the last 6 years that I've been with the company. So, like for example, we've developed the hashtag Sasol Chemicals, which, as you can tell from the hashtag, it's very relevant. It tells you immediately what we're going to be talking about, and we've simply over the last few months just been upweighting that in terms of encouraging our colleagues to use that whenever talking about the chemicals business. And just in the last 4 months alone, Ray, that hashtag's potential reach was 20 million.
Wow.
So it potentially reached 20 million people. And that's just one of the hashtags we use. And I'm sure those who are familiar with our LinkedIn page will see often that when we celebrate our people, I often would use hashtag We Are Sasol, or when we talk about social investment, hashtag Sasol in Society. And really, the effective use of hashtags is around how do you categorize all this great information and legacy content under a hashtag, and how do you leverage that going forward? For me, when we talk about sharing your authentic voice, I always ask myself 3 questions before I publish any content on the Sasol platforms. And that includes our YouTube channel, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course our flagship LinkedIn. And that is, the first question I ask myself is it credible? So whatever I'm publishing, does it make sense for the brand? The second question I ask myself is it sustainable? Because I don't really like talking about things once off. I like talking about stories, and stories evolve over time, and stories really become richer and richer as we build it up. So whenever I look at a piece of content that I'm about to publish, I always think to myself, okay, what's going to be the follow-up piece to this? How do I expand on this later? How do I build on this? And the last question I ask myself around sharing my authentic voice as someone who publishes content for Sasol is, whatever I'm sharing, is it valuable to my reader? Is it valuable to my audience? And that really moves it away from being more self-serving and really to be something where people can derive value from. So an example would be something like if we talk about our fuel products, like our 93 octane fuel, what's valuable to a reader is then for us to then to link through to an FAQ, to share an email address, for us to really continue that conversation. So those really are the 3 principles I use whenever I'm publishing content. Is it credible? Is it sustainable? And is it valuable to my audience? Cool. I just thought I'll chuck that in there, Ray, just to give
That's
some of the
like,
stuff
to
all
be honest,
insight.
that's super solid advice, like super solid advice. So we've talked about updates. So updates are short, or updates are something that you can literally start like today. And we're going to transition into to publishing. So publishing is really that opportunity to position yourself as a thought leader.
Mm.
So yeah, we've talked. We're going to do a little bit about publishing. So publishing is long form articles essentially. So you are going to. Aha. Thank you, MJ. Yeah. So thank you very much. So yeah, publishing is an opportunity for you to position yourself as a thought leader. It takes a little bit longer, so it gets shared with your network, and it reaches the largest group of professionals assembled online. And it can also get consumed into your actual company page as well. So if you think about that, if somebody's looking at your profile and they see that you've published, or they come across your article, you're a chemical engineer or a HR professional or a marketing professional, it really gives you that that kind of credence that you're a professional and you're publishing, etc. So that's just a little bit about publishing.
Mm. And really, there's so much power in that. In fact, what I do on a personal level is I will combine publishing in terms of industry updates or sharing my reflections on what's happening in terms of digital marketing and communication with a very specific agenda. So I just think Successful is part of the YES program, which is a South African government initiative to place unemployed youth in different companies so that they get work experience, because the stats show that if you have a 12-month internship, you're more likely to get a job afterwards. And I'm very lucky to have had a Yes intern under my guidance for a year. And when he was about to leave the company, I wrote a recommendation for him on LinkedIn as an article that spoke really about the journey, about how much I've learned from him over the last year. And that literally went viral. That post I
Wow.
published was seen by tens and tens of thousands of people. He got so many offers out of that and opportunities, and I'm really happy for him because he's currently permanently employed. In fact, 3 weeks after he left the company, he signed his contract. So it just shows you it's really the power of networking. And I guess it goes back to that earlier picture that you had, of your experiences with LinkedIn and the power of connection. And I'm pretty sure that those who are watching this webinar, a lot of them will also have very similar experiences in terms of just really the power of networking on that and the power of publishing. I must say the other thing about publishing, Ray, is that often we would be quite hesitant to put something out there. But what I find about LinkedIn is, unlike a lot of other social media platforms where there is some level of toxicity, I find on LinkedIn there's a lot of encouragement, there's a lot of support. People want to celebrate others. People want to hear good things. People want to recommend and to acknowledge and to really note where the great stories are coming from. So I must commend the LinkedIn team actually on actually creating a safe platform for sharing, and one not like perhaps other platforms where there is a level of toxicity. And I do think that's definitely the case with LinkedIn versus other platforms.
Thank you, MJ. Great story, by the
Mm.
way.
So let's talk a
So
bit more about publishing. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. And very similar, we're going to talk about like best practice around publishing, and like by the sounds of it, and that story that you shared is such like a memorable story. It's the first time I heard it, so thank you very much for sharing it. But publishing again starts on your homepage, and if you go to the next slide, we are going to talk about just some best practices around publishing. So publishing is more of a long form article. So you have to think headlines. Think about headlines in a newspaper and something that really grabs your attention. Like as usual, publishing, when you use a photo or you use rich media or a video, it stands out much, much more than just a bunch of text. And again, that whole piece around being authentic, like the story that you just shared about that guy and the Yes program, like you can't get more authentic than that. And I guess like the proof of the pudding is the level of engagement and the level of views that you got around that article. And then, if you think about like the audience that you were tapping into, like you wanted to like get that person in front of an audience and highlight what he's done over the course of 12 months. And it just really hit the nail on the head. And then article length, like I bet if you had written an article that was like 6 or 7 pages long, um, you wouldn't have gotten to the end of it. But I'm
Oh,
sure if I
definitely
go
not.
back, yeah. So I'm sure if you talk about best practice around those articles, you keep it short, you keep it to the point. You might use bullet points or something like that to increase the level of engagement on those articles.
No, these are all very, very solid points. And I think before we jump into the track your progress, just to recap the two aspects of publishing, and really it's largely about curating. So sharing those status updates, finding a great article, or even if you think about the own articles you read for that expands your own horizon in terms of your industry, your specialization, sharing that online with a point of view, that's a very easy thing to do. And I think perhaps the challenge is for everyone listening to this webinar is the first thing you can do after you've optimized your profile is find one piece of content that resonates with you. And it doesn't have to necessarily be your own. It could be something you've read, it could be something that you find online, something you find on LinkedIn. Share that piece of content and just add your point of view, add your context, add your narrative, add your position on it. And I think if you just do that and just do that once a week for the next 3 weeks, then we can start saying, okay, now you're starting to see that engagement. You're starting to get that feeling of reciprocity. And then from there, we can talk about the bigger things. Don't just start by, sitting down and trying to pen your thoughts and publish something. That's very daunting. For those who haven't published before, start by curating, start by sharing updates, and then make your way over to publishing. Which brings us to our next point, really, is around tracking your progress. And really, when you look at your LinkedIn profile, think about what you want to get out of your profile. What really made me smile a few months ago when I was having a one-on-one training session with one of the Sasol executives around LinkedIn is the executive said that they wanted to use their LinkedIn profile to celebrate their people. They wanted to use their LinkedIn profile to celebrate all the different Sasol people who are doing such a great job. And they knew that with their position as an executive, it means so much from an endorsement perspective. And I thought that was a really great way of perhaps utilizing and maximizing their LinkedIn. And like that, there, you don't have to use your LinkedIn for one singular purpose. Think about what it is you want to achieve. Think about your personal brand and how it is you want to position yourself. Think about what word associations you want to come to mind when people think of your professional profile. What are those keywords or those jargon words that you want to be associated with you, and what are you doing to build that? So Ray, over to you in terms of track your progress. What else can people do in terms of understand the impact of their LinkedIn status updates?
Yeah, they're really great points, MJ. But I guess the beauty about online, and like more, you know this more than most, is that everything you do online, we can track, right? So we can track the number of views, we can track who clicks it, etc. So if you do publish an article, or you do share an update, like you said, keep it simple, but you can absolutely track it. So you can tell, like, where those people have come from that have viewed it, what sort of role title that they've had, like where the audience is actually physically located. So is it Johannesburg? Is it Cape Town? Is it Durban? And how your article was actually found. Um, the other piece as well, and I get this question kind of quite often, MJ, is, well, how do I start? How do I build? How do I build my network? So I've only got like 30 connections or 40 connections. How do I build my network? So you kind of start simple. You think about like your colleagues, your existing colleagues. You think about previous companies that you worked in. You think about people that you've met for coffees. And then LinkedIn is actually pretty clever about suggesting
Hmm.
people that you might know. So you will naturally see those people rise to the surface.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important as well to connect with peers. So those with similar job titles in other companies as well, those who have a similar career path is really important because it also gives you a sense of comfort and a sense of ambition as well and aspiration. So all of those things are really important in terms of the personal brand and really just every day waking up and just trying to improve a little bit more. So it's a really important point. And I think with that, let's just highlight the key takeaways for today because this has been a really great session. Ray, thank you so much for your time. So yeah, if you can just recap those 3 points.
Yeah, an absolute pleasure, absolute pleasure. So one thing I want to say even before the key takeaways is our LinkedIn is an opportunity for everyone to make themselves a purple cow. And what do I mean by that? So if I was driving down a motorway and where I am in Ireland and I passed a field, and in those fields were cows, and one of those cows was a purple cow, chances are I'd pull my car over, I'd pop out, I might start taking some pictures, I could call some friends, I might post those pictures to Twitter or Facebook. I wouldn't post it on LinkedIn because it wouldn't be an appropriate platform for that. But your LinkedIn profile is really an opportunity for you to make yourself a purple cow and make yourself stand out from the crowd. So think about what you can do today, start small, and just make progress over time. So the key takeaways are like building out your profile. So start with a photo, start with a headline, and build from there. Start endorsing people, start getting recommendations, make small steps every day. So follow companies and influencers. So this is going to dictate the quality of your news feed. So you follow companies that you're interested in because you like the technologies that they're working with. You potentially want to work there. think about influencers. So think about like all of those influencers across South Africa, Mteto, Lillian Bernard. Think about global influencers like Richard Branson, Bill Gates, and again, that dictates the quality of your newsfeed. And then the third element is share and engage with content. So it's a social network. So the key word is social. So start sharing, start making conversation, start engaging with people, and so basically what you put in, and you'll see coming back, hopefully tenfold. So that's my key takeaways.
Oh, that's great. So I think, yeah, just to recap that, build out your profile. It's not about a complete overhaul overnight, but definitely look at those little wins you can do. Follow those 9 steps that we've outlined, and just look at how you optimize it. I think what's great about LinkedIn is LinkedIn will actually give you a score as you build out your profile and as you optimize it to say, well done, you've done this, do that. Do all of those things. Make sure that you secure your public URL so that your name stands out. You have a very unique LinkedIn URL, but all the numbers at the end. When it comes to following companies and influencers, again, self-select and curate based on what you want to see. So don't just follow someone because they have large reach. Follow them because it makes sense for you, because it's credible for what you want to associate with, what you want to see in your feed, and really curate that experience that you want to see. And get rid of that fluff and the nonsense that you think is not for you. And really then just focus and use the platform for that. And then finally, around sharing and engaging with content, look, take baby steps. In fact, what perhaps we'll do is my profile is always open and I'm always sharing content. So please connect with me, MJ Khan, on LinkedIn. I'm going to post content quite often. Share something on that piece of content and let's just build something together. And then as you share content, if you've got content around Tassel that you want to share, maybe you've got a great milestone that you've done, let me know as well. And then we can share that content on to our massive network of over 500,000 followers and growing every single day. So yes, colleagues, lots and lots of opportunities for LinkedIn. I think lots of opportunities around personal brand. And definitely what we've discussed today is a lot more than just a platform. It's about a mindset, it's about a state of mind, and it's about thinking about your personal brand and how it's presented online and how it positions you in your absence. So we do hope that the session was great. Ray, once again, thank you so much for spending some time with us, going through this. And I think what we do have as a special treat for everyone who's listened right till the end is we're going to build up a whole lot of resources on the content portal. In fact, Ray, one of the resources that you've shared with me is a learning path. So just before we end, can you tell us a little bit more about that, the LinkedIn learning path?
Yeah, so we've made a lot of content available for free. So that content is we've basically kind of released 10 learning tracks if you want to transition your career to a different area. So we've made those 10 learning tracks free. We've then made like interview resources free as well, and just everything that you might need if you wanted to transition your career to something else. So it's part of LinkedIn and Microsoft and what we've done. So absolutely more than happy to share that.
Wonderful. And with that there, it's a goodbye from me in South Africa. And Ray, a goodbye from you in
And it's
Ireland.
goodbye from me in Dublin, Ireland. So I hope to be back in South Africa soon. All the best, everybody. Bye now.
Thanks so much. Cheers.